Good afternoon, everyone. So my study is on proposed money productivity gain cycle for peace, sustainability, and global development. And of course, since we are talking about love of life, so as a maritime ethicist, I will relay my study into its implications to bioethics and healthcare. My presentation is outlined into 9 chapters. Chapter 1, we'll briefly discuss about the maritime industry, and then Chapter 2 about the research methodology that I use to develop the study. Chapter 3 is the development. Chapter 4 is the strength, weakness, opportunities, threats, and analysis of the Philippine mining industry. Chapter 5 is on leadership and policy analysis. Chapter 6 is the policy implications of this study. Chapter 7 is the proposed money productivity gain cycle, which I would like, of course, to propose as a framework. Chapter 8 is, of course, to provide a brief conclusion and recommendation. And finally, its implication to bioethics and healthcare. Let me briefly discuss what the maritime industry, and specifically bioethics in maritime industry. Well, the globalization of the world economy has brought renewed vitality and challenging opportunities to the new global shipping industry. The fast growth in world population, especially those in the developed and new emerging economies, calls for the increased transport needs to cope with the demand of the world markets and the mobility of people. Sea transport by far is the most cost-effective and the most cost-effective way to move goods and raw materials around the world. In fact, around 90% of the world trade is carried by the international shipping industry. So in other words, as a major player in carrying on around 90% of the global trade, the International Chambered Shipping, or ICS, identifies international shipping as the lifeblood of the world trade. Let me define what is meant by ethics. When we say ethics, it means it is a philosophical discipline pertaining to notions of good and bad, right and wrong, a moral life in the community. When we talk about bioethics, this is the application of ethics to the fields of medicine, healthcare, environment, and life. Now the question is, how is it related to maritime affairs? When we talk about maritime bioethics, the study now intends to explore deeper issues such as the meaning of quality life, the pain and suffering, rights and responsibilities by all concerned in the maritime world. And when you say maritime industry, we all know that it is composed of people that must do the right thing, be good in all ways, do worthwhile things, know their obligations, be responsible for a reason, and respond fittingly in any moral dilemma, given the context in which it arises, and a lot more. So, having given this definition, so let me proceed to the next slide. So, in relation to bioethics, the maritime industry may apply the bioethics principles to the seafarers. And when we talk about the bioethics principle, there are 2 important terms that we can use. These are the principles of non-maleficence and the principles of beneficence. When we say principles of non-maleficence, in other words, it means avoidance of harm. So the principle of non-maleficence requires an intention to avoid needless harm or injury that can arise through acts of commission or omission. So acts of harm note that injury can arise through acts of commission or omission, because there are two kinds of sin. They said that sin if you have committed the sin, and sin if you wherein you should have done something but you did not do anything. So that is a sin of commission when you intently do the harm, and sin of omission wherein you could have been avoided. It could have been avoided if you have done so, if you have been sensitive to the situation. Okay? In common language, it can be considered negligence. For example, if seafarer imposes a careless or unreasonable risk of harm upon another. Now, the principle of beneficence pertains to demand for the positive benefit. So, take note, non-maleficence, it is avoidance of harm. Beneficence, it is the demand for the positive benefit. So, principle refers to actions that promote the well-being of others. So, it is the duty of the maritime professionals should be to benefit a party as well as to take positive steps to prevent and to remove harm from the party. And this is now where, in maritime industry, we have this term SOLAS, or safety of life at sea. Okay. So these two principles now is the basis of its application now to the maritime industry. So the researcher struggling to be a maritime bioethicist would like to analyze the various issues in the maritime industry and partly in the context of healthcare. There are pluralistic plethora of maritime traditions to spawn discourse on various issues of moral differences and other issues on which most people agree. Okay. Now let me briefly inform you about the Philippine maritime industry and its difference. What is the difference when you say maritime industry and the mining industry? When you say maritime industry, it is a portion of the shipping industry which encompasses a myriad of activities. And what are these activities? It could include trading, shipbuilding, ship operation, and logistics. Whereas when you say mining industry, it is the industry that supports the shipping industry. Why? Because it is concerned with the recruitment of seafarers, qualified seafarers, the processing of all the requirements needed for the seafarers to be competent, or for the hiring of the seafarer, and the deployment of competent and competitive seafarers for deployment in ocean-going vessels. For your information, in the Philippines is known as the mining capital of the world. Everywhere you go, you see a lot of Filipino seafarers. And there are more than 400,000 seafarers around the world. So, because of that, there are a total of more than 479 mining agencies in the Philippines. And this is run by mining managers who are responsible for the recruitment, the processing, and the deployment of competent and competitive seafarers for the principals, like for example, the Norwegian principals, the Japanese principals, and all that. So, do you understand now the difference between maritime industry and the mining industry? Okay. So, maritime, these are the different activities. The mining industry, it pertains to the people, okay, in the recruitment and selection of people. Now, the Philippine mining industry, who are the stakeholders? So, it could be the workers themselves, these are the seafarers, the ship owners, these are the owners of the vessels, the Philippine government, especially represented by, of course, the Marina, the Maritime Industry Authority, the Department of Labor and Employment, the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or the POEA. It could be the mining agencies, more than 469. The maritime education, we have 96 maritime education and training, meaning these are the different universities like Maritime Academy of Teaching in the Pacific, where I am connected, the Philippine Merchant Marine Academy, There are 96. And because of the EMSA, it was reduced to 26. And then, since they have already but since they have complied with the strict requirements by the Marina, by the government agencies, it is now increased again to 78. The training institutions, we've got 79 in the country, and then the remittances centers and the banks. For your information, the Seafarers is known as the Asang Heroes, or the Bagong Bayani, the new heroes. The Asang Heroes because of the money that they remit to banks that really tremendously help the government. No? Then the shipping industry has created employment for thousands of Filipino marine officers, ratings, and service providers, both in the domestic and the international trade. And as I said, the Philippines remains to be the top suppliers of seafaring manpower in the world, accounting for more than a quarter of the global shipping fleet, making Philippines known as the manning capital of the world. Now, when we talk about manning industry, proposing a productivity gain cycle, then we have to also to study what is the Philippine Development Plan. So the plan, in summary, is intended to pursue rapid and sustainable economic growth and human resource development. It also plans to improve the quality of life of the Filipino people, to empower the poor, and to marginalize and enhance social cohesion as a nation. And its strategic development policy framework focuses on improving transparency and accountability in governance, strengthening the macroeconomy, boosting international competitiveness, facilitating infrastructure development, strengthening financial sector and capital mobilization, improving access to quality social services, enhancing peace and security for development, and ensuring ecological integrity. Please take note that what I am presenting to you, you will see this in the proposed manning productivity gain cycle, which I'm proposing, because the framework that I will be proposing will all assist in accomplishing this Philippine Development Plan in order to address this these four objectives, and of course the policy framework. So all of this will be addressed by the proposed productivity gain cycle that I will present later. And that is the beauty of my study. It's a new contribution to development, and with implication to bioethics. And that's why I think this course, because this made me think about love of life and how I can contribute to the development or the policy implication, because study should result to policy implication. Okay. The Philippine Development Plan envisions there are 8. So as a summary, it envisions that the Philippines should be a safe and secure place. It must be efficient. It must be viable. It must be competitive. That's why we need the good people. It must be dependable. It must be integrated, environmentally sustainable, and people-oriented. Okay. And the government recognizes that in order to support the development goal of promoting employment, there is a need to create and maintain a reservoir of skilled, competent, and certificated maritime manpower. We all know that human resources are very important, because you, me, all of us, that's why we're studying, we are important. The infrastructure is just there, But what moves the infrastructure? It's still the people, the brain behind all this. Okay? And that is development. Once you develop the people, everything will follow. Now, although the Philippines has maintained its stand as the mining capital of the world, there was an observed downtrend in the deployment of the Filipino seafarers. And what are these? Okay, to summarize, it's because of the Maritime Administration political system, the competitive wage threats to Eastern European countries and Asian neighbors. Okay, when you say competitive wage threats to Eastern European countries and Asian neighbors, let me cite you an example, like Filipino seafarers, like master mariners, for example, they earn 10,000 to 15,000 US dollars per month, but the European counterpart, of course, much more. Decline in maritime education and training, legal cases, absurd court litigation. I will not explain anymore. I will just cite this so that later we could have a question and answer. Certification system, especially in the proliferation of false certificates. So the result of my study had provided later the current insight, status, productivity, and prospects of the mining industry in the Philippines. And this study also served as an assessment on the contribution of the mining industry in the support of the Philippine development. Now, what are the challenge of sustaining the mining industry? You know, the EMSA visit, the EMSA stands for European Maritime Safety Agency. This is one of the challenges in the Philippine maritime industry, which raised the concerns on the quality standard system of the government agencies like the CHED, the Marina that involved in maritime affairs, the assurance of implementing the management level courses, and the monitoring and evaluation of training and assessment. And these issues, if not addressed, could lead to the non-recognition of the STCW certificates issued by the government, which of course will result in the displacement of the more than 80,000 Filipino seafarers aboard the European flagships. Furthermore, such non-recognition could significantly reduce and negatively impact the economy due to a lower level of remittances. Also, mining agency, maritime schools, the review centers, all those stakeholders I have listed earlier, lawyers among others, also stand to be adversely affected by such penalties. So to address the concern of this EMSA and to ensure the competitiveness of the Philippine seafaring industry, to achieve the goals of aligning Philippine seafaring standard to international benchmarks, a dedicated on STCW services staffed by specialist personnel was established within Marina. So there is a separate STCW office. And the Marina now is responsible for the issuance, validation, verification, cancellation of certificates of competencies, which is required for all seafarers. Marina also make recommendation to CHED on possible closure or phase out of substandard institutions and programs. And also, the Republic Act 10635, okay, cement the Philippine position in the global seafaring industry. Now, the objective of my research, of course, number one is to generate knowledge, issues, and understanding about the mining industry, which may have moral philosophy and issues affecting the various stakeholders or people in the maritime industry that may directly or indirectly affect their health. Because we all know that a happy and satisfied maritime worker or seafarers would result in peace, sustainability, and global development. And the result of this study should of course provide insight into the current status, productivity, and prospects for the mining industry in the Philippines. The study may also serve as an assessment of the contribution of the mining industry in support of the Philippine development goals for peace, sustainability, ASEAN integration, and the global development and implication to bioethics and healthcare. Now, the research methods. So my study employs descriptive analysis of data. This is to explore and explain the present status of the mining industry and its contribution to the shipping industry in particular, and to the attainment of the Philippine Development Goals and ASEAN 2015 integration in general. Before, when I did the study, it's an ASEAN in 2015 integration, but now it's the sustainability development for 2018. The study involves both qualitative and quantitative analysis of primary and secondary data, which include the knowledge and insights of experts from industry, seafarers, and or maritime leaders. So I did a lot of interviews. Information was also obtained from official government websites, interviews, and survey of experts, which I have transcribed and documented. Also, I have attended a lot of conferences, fora, roundtable discussions, and other meetings in addition to other meetings which we particularly initiated and hosted. My study is limited to the use of expert opinion as a foresighting method, especially in coming up with a SWOT analysis of the mining industry, particularly on issues on the graduates. SWOT analysis pertains to strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The enormous ideas, data, information, and issues gathered, they were analyzed and categorized to achieve the objectives of the study on the mining productivity gain cycle and the emerging maritime industry towards accomplishment of the Philippine economic development goals. Remember the 4 economic development goals? To summarize, these are the human resources development, microeconomic stability, international competitiveness, and sustained growth. And what would be the output of my research? The output will be the productivity gain model or framework in the mining industry that will help uplift the country economically in support to the accomplishment of the Philippine economic development goals, which may have implications in bioethics and healthcare, because the maritime industry is composed of people. Chapter 3 on development. Let me briefly present to you shipping and the world economy. The prospects for the world economy, trade, and shipping seem to be improving through with the number of risks, such as the fragile recovery in developed economies, the difficulties facing growth in large emerging economies, and geopolitical tensions that may escalate. And this risk could derail the world economy away from positive growth. Meanwhile, upside potential include a strengthening of the economic recovery in advanced economies. Now, on ASEAN integration, globalization in Asia, Asia is at the forefront of globalization in all successful Asian economies. Trade has become an essential source of growth on both the demand and the supply side. A substantial gap remains in labor productivity between the service sectors in Asia and the United States. In Asia, some modern services industries such as transportation, storage, communication, financial intermediation, and business services have experienced higher productivity growth. On global trade and maritime industry, Asia and the Pacific is a significant source of demand for shipping and a leading supplier of seafarers for the shipping worldwide. As the shipping tasks rise due to economic growth and cross-structural changes, the number of seafarers also rises. Such external drivers from the macroeconomic, such external drivers form from the macro environment that seafaring operates within and must adapt to as the world evolves. Within the Eastern industry itself, structural will influence the number of the seafarers required. On the search in the Philippine maritime sector, in 2002, I have studied the money industry behavior and its impact on the Philippine economic development using the data generated from 1996 to 2002. Downtrend in the deployment of Philippine seafarers, this one I've already mentioned earlier, and it still is true as of today. The present study provides the current status of the money industry, which all maritime stakeholders must be concerned in making it productive to contribute to the Philippine economic development. Okay. So, from the study, as regards the maritime administration political system, in the Philippines, we now have a single administration. Before, there was there was a bureaucracy, but now we only have Marina. On the competitive wage trends to Eastern European countries and Asian neighbors, there is a collective bargaining agreement, and it has already been explained also to the seafarers that salaries can never be the same because of cost of living, just like the cost of McDonald's. The cost of McDonald's in the Philippines would differ with the cost of McDonald's in Europe. Decline in maritime education and training, we are working on that, and they have closed all the substandard schools in the Philippines, and what is retained now are those that comply with the requirements. Okay? And there is no more proliferation of false certificates that were observed by the European Maritime Safety Administration. Okay. And then, okay, let me provide a summary on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that were derived from the study. So, for the strength weaknesses, this pertains to the internal conditions, such as the people management expertise, facilities, building, equipment, technology, the marketing, sales development skills, reputation, image, and financial resources. So in analyzing the strength weaknesses, so it's internal. And for the opportunities and threats, this pertains to the external factors. So external factors such as political, social, economic changes, competition locally or even nationally, market size and trends, profitability of market, needs that the products will feel, likelihood of this is changing. So this I have shown you on how I have analyzed the strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats in the maritime industry. So again, strength and weaknesses pertains to the internal condition, opportunities and threats pertains to the external factors. Now, in conducting this SWOT analysis, there are 12 events which either we initially hosted or organized, or in which I have participated. So, from this SWOT analysis, from this 12 events that I have attended or organized or initiated, I was able to come up with a SWOT analysis, able to characterize the Filipino maritime leaders, able to identify the emerging industries, able to propose policies, and able to propose a money productivity gain cycle framework model, which you will see later. But as a summary, I will just show photos of the 12 events that I have initiated or organized or have attended. So first photo, you can see the WIMAFIL Marina Joint Roundtable Discussion. When WIMAFIL stands for Women Maritime in Philippines, Marina is Maritime Industry Authority. So the roundtable discussion, it's about leveling the playing field. So we have discussed the challenges to women seafarers, and this was held in the Maritime Industry Authority in 2014. The second event is the 2014 Philippine Seafarers Convention. This was held at the National Library on April 30, 2014 and in Marina in 2012. And all this I have transcribed and have documented and formed part of my more than 180-page paper. The third event is the TKF Foundation Global Maritime Education and Training Seminar with the theme Identifying, Analyzing, and Bridging the Gap between the STCW Code as amended and current course delivery for the Marine Qualification. It was hosted and sponsored by my institution, Maritime Academy in Asia and the Pacific in Bataan. The fourth is the Preventing Collision and Bridge Watchkeeping Seminar Workshop held in Master and Mates Association of the Philippines, Malate, Manila. So I'm showing the photo as proof, and you can see me on those photos. The lady seated, of course. The initiator, the organizer. So I must be seated in the front. Okay, another is the CRC UAP Roundtable Discussion. This is Strengthening Maritime Education, Issues and Strategies. A roundtable discussion on maritime education held in the University of Asia and the Pacific, Pasig City on June 18, 2014. In all this, I'm also one of the presenter. And we discussed also about the K-12 and all that. The Nautical Institute Philippine Branch Exploratory Meeting in Manila Yacht Club. Okay. Meeting on the K-12 project at Incheon National Maritime High School in South Korea. Again, PKF Global Met, First Phase Seminar Workshop at Manila Yacht Club. The Asia Pacific Manning Training Conference in Sofitel Hotel, Manila. The Nautical Institute Command Seminar with the theme Addressing Curriculum and Training Issues on Navigational Competence for Shipping Productivity Gain Cycle. Okay. Chaired by my President, Admiral Santos, at Sofitel Hotel in November 28, 2014. The Transnav International Conference in Gdynia Maritime University in Poland in 2015. The Maritime Labor Convention Stakeholders Meeting in Berlin, Germany on June 26, 28, 2015. Okay, now the result. So from all this meeting discussion, I have, of course, noted all the concerns and issues and tried to analyze them and categorize them as to whether it's strength, weakness, opportunities, or threats. Okay, these are the summary. For the strength, Philippines, we are internationally recognized as the mining capital of the world. More than a quarter, you will see around the world now, you will see Filipino seafarers. There is a high rate of deployment of Filipino seafarers. There is also an increase in the number of principals engaged in the mining agencies. As I mentioned, there are more than 469 mining agencies in the country. There's also an increase in the number of maritime enrollees and graduates because there are 78 maritime education and training institutions in the country. There is a large manpower pool of ratings and officers. Availability of welfare seafarers. Availability of welfare services for seafarers. There is improvement streamlining in the Philippine Maritime Administration because we now have only Marina as the agency involved. Unified frontliners, strong public-private partnership to promote the seafarers' competencies. Availability and recognition of quality excellent mining agencies. There are what we call the Hall of Famers. Out of the 469 mining agencies, they have identified the top 10. And how are they awarded as excellent? If it depends on the welfare services that they are providing the seafarers. Reforms in the Maritime Higher Educational Institution for better industry workforce entrance. Close monitoring of accredited maritime training center. These are the identified weaknesses. The weaknesses, there is diverse issues and concern with the new regulation in compliance to STCW. There is lack of government support for the seafarers' education. There is inadequacy of equipment and facilities in higher educational institution maritime. inadequacy of qualified trainers and teachers in maritime higher education institution, naturally because they earn more when they go on board. Gaps and issues on maritime education output and the needs of the industry. Lack of berths for cadet training program. There is a decrease in the number of the licensure examination takers. Lack of senior officers, especially for engine. Lesser number of qualified new entrants. Issues on gaps on the availment of welfare services for seafarers. Lack of statistical data in our research development in the maritime sector. What are the opportunities? There are wide industry network, global demand for officer, availability of maritime funders and sponsors, training opportunities for cadets and seafarers, upgrading for ratings and officers, training opportunities for teachers, trainers, and developing consistent course structures and curricula based on international best practice. What are the threats? There is implications of the EMSA audit result, potential competition from other suppliers supplying nation in Asia and in Africa in the future, and therefore there is a need to sustain the supply in the light of socio-economic changes in the Asia-Pacific over time. Lack of coordination vision to sustain Philippine position as the lead supplier of seafarers. Now, what are the leadership and policy analysis? Okay, leadership is a very interesting topic, no? As it is relevant in the success of the shipping industry and any industry in general. It is a process of influencing a group towards the achievement of goals. And there are 6 traits consistently associated with effective leadership. And these are drive, the desire to lead, the honesty and integrity, self-confidence, intelligence, and job-relevant knowledge. And successful leadership is the result of the interaction between the traits of the leader and the situation itself. Now, this study have identified the traits of Filipinos who become leaders in the shipping industry. Okay, so these are the top 9. First is hardworking, self-disciplined, team player, motivated, dedicated, honest, service-oriented, action-focused, sociable, resilient, and versatility. And these are the qualities of Filipino leaders in the maritime industry. Number 1, experience, sea, land, and land-based job. Must be behavioral, competent, with advanced educational attainment, rose from the rank, at least a master and a chief engineer. Good in networking, change management, competent. So to be manned by maritime leaders they must possess these perceived threats and qualification, which certainly would enhance the manning productivity cycle, which this study would like to propose. Now, what are the emerging maritime industries in the Philippines? Still, the number 1 perceived is manning agencies, followed by the maritime training centers, ship management, technical consultancy, maritime review centers, shipbuilding, travel agency activities, cargo handling, services activities intended to water transportation, installation of industrial machinery and equipment, sea and coastal passenger water transport, offshore industry, support activities for petroleum and natural gas extraction, sea and coastal freight water transport. Okay, money capital of the world, again, if you recall the 4, human resource development, macroeconomic stability, international competitiveness, sustained growth. So we have identified the emerging maritime industry. We have investment and venturing to new business, facilities, equipment, and new technology with development of new infrastructure like renewable energy and other facilities. This would certainly directly or indirectly contribute to the money productivity gain cycle, which this study would like to propose. Okay, and it is also shown that through this study, the maritime business stakeholders may partner with foreign investors to invest in the Philippines in any of the identified emerging maritime industry that would contribute to the money productivity gain cycle towards the accomplishment of the Philippine economic development goals. Now, these are the issues and recommendations provided during the Maritime Health Conference hosted by MAP in 2016. We have just listed all the sickness that resulted to seafarers' rejection. Heart disease, pulmonary problems, hearing loss, Ishihara deficiency, diabetes, and for unfitness, identified diseases are gallbladder stones, hepatitis B, heart disease, hearing loss, pulmonary tuberculosis. For medical repatriation, we have the gastrointestinal problems, abdomen musculoskeletal disease, urinary kidney disease, lung ailments, and dermatitis problems. Okay. So here are some of the other issues. Okay. And what are the policy implications? Okay. Particular on issues concerning graduates, impact of SWOT, perceived trades, and other concerns. They have been analyzed with a SWOT analysis of the. It is critical now to convert weaknesses to strengths and the threats to opportunities. And how is that? This is through the collective efforts of the stakeholders in the maritime industry led by the government side.